Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of World Talks here on TVP World. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee, and please join me and my guests on this next interview. Hungary is experiencing significant civil unrest following the government's enactment of a law banning pride events and restricting assembly rights. The situation was further exacerbated when members of the opposition party were allegedly attacked during the protests, an event that led the opposition leader to accuse Prime Minister Orbán of inciting a civil war. Joining us today on TVP World to discuss these developments is Zoltán Tarr, Deputy Chairman of the Tisza Party and member of the European Parliament with the European People's Party. Now, Mr. Tarr's insight into Hungary's political landscape are invaluable as we delve into these pressing issues. Hello, sir, and welcome to TVP World.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
So let's first hone in on the most recent wave of controversy and protest where the Hungarian government's recent legislation banning pride events. What do you believe are the primary motives behind this ban, and how does that align with the government's broader agenda?
Well, first of all, the Pride event is really just a cover-up, and the proposed banning of this event is a cover-up for a much more major change what the government is introducing by changing the constitution. They are limiting the rights of assembly, and to say what is the underlying cause is really that we, the Tisza Party, are organizing rallies and meetings and demonstrations very frequently. Many people are turning out, and they would like to somehow get a chance to limit those. But they chose a quite controversial issue, the pride, as a kind of covering reason. And that's why many people went to the streets. And I have to make this very clear. We were not demonstrating on the streets against this ban and against these changes, because that's exactly what the government wants us to do, to play according to the government's playbook, which we don't want to do. And the atrocities you mentioned are happening in a totally different setting. We are organizing a rally, and we are in a rally in Hungary at the moment. We have organized a sort of opinion poll for the people. People can vote on certain issues, and in this way they can help us to formulate our governmental program for the hopefully after the election. And many of our volunteers are being attacked by people who are practically are hysteric because of the government and the Prime Minister's comments and actions. But we are not on the streets because of this proposed ban on pride. That's exactly the government's aim, to bring us to the streets, but we are not going because we don't want to play according to the government's playbook.
All right, like I mentioned, a lot of these kind of narratives seems to be using these wedge issues, these more controversial issues, to drive the political divide and cover up the real intention that is behind it cracking down on dissent. Now, this law also introduces like facial recognition technology to monitor and even potentially penalize participants. Do you think that, again, under the guise of some sort of political or ideological crusade, they are allowing themselves to gain more power in cracking down on dissent in a way that is, again, a little bit more under the cover?
Absolutely. The current government in Hungary is in fear, actually. They are deeply concerned because they are not able to control the country anymore by the tools and ideological warfare they have. Our people and our opposition is not, as I said, we are not willing to play according to their playbook. And because out of desperation and frustration, they are introducing more and more crazy legislations, but they know exactly how to make a divide in the society, just as you said. And they are doing it in order to take away the focus from the real issues, which are very deeply economical issues, a very deep divide within the society, which they are actually fabricating artificially in order to make people concentrate on issues which are actually not real issues, but because of the government's communication, because of the propaganda, they make it the issue. People are struggling with their salaries. The inflation is record high in Hungary, much higher than in other European countries. We have a struggling economy. It is very obvious that the government is not capable of tackling with the issues and the challenges. And obviously, many people are very critical about the government standpoint with regard to the European Union and with our friendship, the government's friendship with Russia. And yes, as you mentioned, this introducing facial recognition, this is something which is strictly against all European regulations. And that is, as you said, it is very, very fearful that they are going to introduce it in order to control us, first of all, but also anyone who is against their opinion and their propaganda.
All right, I wanted to shed some light on this because I think you brought up a very important issue here. And well, from observing it on an international perspective, especially when I take a look at conservative outlets in places like the United States, they have a very kind of optimistic view of Hungary precisely because of these cultural war issues, be it the LGBTQ stuff, or they firmly believe that Hungary is the country, or the Hungary government is the one that is championing a lot of Christian causes. And these type of narratives happen very effectively spread by the Hungarian government. Can you help us kind of dispel some of this narrative and where the divides are, and kind of help us shed more light on how that is being used as a wedge issue to drive their domestic political agenda?
Absolutely. Actually, this government, the government of Viktor Orbán, realized that using a sort of Christian vocabulary, which actually is not a real Christian vocabulary, this is political Christianity, which what we are talking about here. They are using Christian phrases in order, again, to cover up and to somehow shade what they are doing. This is a very hypocritical and hypocritic government. That's what is really annoying for most of us, that they are doing exactly the opposite what they are saying, and what they are saying, they don't mean it, actually. Hungary at the moment is, in many ways, it's not a democratic country. I mean, this is openly said in the European Union as well as in other parts of the world, that Hungary is an electoral autocracy. I mean, we do have elections, but the rule we have is quite autocratic, and everything is serving the government's wish. They want to stay in power. They are trying, because they do a lot of polls. They do 3-4 polls a week. They are concentrating on what people want to hear, how people understand certain phrases and expressions, and they are using those in order to mislead people, in order to practically paint a totally different reality than the reality. What we are doing is we are trying very hard, and people are recognizing more and more that the reality is what they live and not what they see in the propaganda and not what they hear from our Prime Minister. And I think this is what will bring change to the everyday life of the people in Hungary.
All right, so very quick, I would like to also ask a little about the opposition leaders' kind of claim of Orbán inciting civil war after some attack on opposition. Just again, real quick, how severe is the situation, the attacks, and is it going to cause any sort of civil divide?
Well, I mean, for us, what is crucially important that we respect the rule of law. We are using only peaceful means, and we would like peace and tolerance in the society. What Orbán is doing actually is he's trying very hard to make divides and to create hostility between people of Hungary. And that's what is happening, that people, very simple people who listen to what Orbán is saying, they are acting out and they come to us with an aggressive voice. We did have some physical atrocities as well, but we are very calm and we don't want to fall into the trap of the government. We don't want to take part in any kind of intense atrocities, and we want to bring peace, and that's what we are doing. Our volunteers and all our people are very peaceful. We don't talk back, we don't hit back. We always call the police, which is actually very, very positive in the sense that they also look for peace and look for tolerance.
All right, thank you so much for your input and insight and helping us shed light on this broader issue. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being with us on TVP World.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. Bye.
And thank you for tuning into this edition of World Talks. But for more news, update, and commentary, please stay tuned to TVP World.